And good day, everybody. Welcome to episode 135 of the Talking Friars podcast, Talking Friars YouTube show. Ben Fadden, your host here. I appreciate everyone who is going to be joining me live here in the chat. Let me know where you're listening from, watching from live, and on replay. I appreciate you watching on YouTube as well. Again, hit that subscribe button, get those subscriber numbers up so we can implement that super chat function for those that want to use it. I appreciate everyone on social media at Talking Friars, Twitter, Instagram, everyone listening on the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Megaphone. You can always find the podcast links in our social media profiles. This episode is sponsored by Gaglione Bros, famous cheesesteaks and subs, located in the Sports Arena, Point Loma, and at Petco Park as well. Obviously, going throughout the season, starting April 14th, the home opener at Petco Park against Matt Olson and the Atlanta Braves. Upper deck, garlic fry stand. They have field level right behind home plate, and then their full stand by the Valley Sports San Diego pre- and post-game booth down the third baseline. GAGLIONEBros.com to view their entire menu. Welcome on in, everyone, into the chat here. We got a lot to talk about. Like you can see down there on the ticker for the YouTube audience, Blake Snell pitched a couple innings in a simulated game today. Ryan Weathers and Dinelson Lamet threw. Stammen, Tim Hill threw as well. In today's Cactus League tie, that's 2 straight ties in a row. CJ Abrams continued to hit and show off his speed. Luke Voigt, I have it in Luke because that's what Yankee fans, used to call him whenever he would do something big. So I would think that's going to translate over to San Diego. He hit his first bomb in spring training, so there's a lot to talk about there. One star in the National League West is talking about an extension with his team, who could have been possibly a trade target for the San Diego Padres, so we'll get into that as well. But a lot to talk about. Again, welcome everyone into the chat here, episode 135 of the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. Greg, welcome on in. He asked, who's the new pitcher the Padres signed? They claimed a pitcher off waivers from the Boston Red Sox, and his name is Kyle Tyler. We will get into him. So, Ian, that's the same question you asked. Yep, so Kyle Tyler, we will get into him. I have a quick video that I posted on the Twitter account that I'll show, and then I'll talk about some of his stats, maybe a role that he might have on the team this year. Dylan asked my thoughts on Ryan Weathers today. It was definitely up and down. It was definitely down to start off his outing. He was a little iffy, with his command. The fastball was up and away, and we'll definitely get to that. I think it's right to start chronologically with the beginning of the day to the end of the day of what happened. So we're going to start with Blake Snell and that simulated game that he threw today. He pitched 2 simulated innings on today, Saturday, March 26th, which is when I'm going live on YouTube and when I'm recording this. AJ Cassavell, MLB.com, says they probably will start the season in the 4 to 5 inning range. And a lot of people are frustrated with Snell because they think he was playing video games the whole lockout and wasn't throwing like Musgrove and Clevenger were, and Darvish and Paddock and Gore, guys that are going to be more built up, it seems like, than what Snell's going to be. But I'm trying to view it more of as an optimistic, a positive viewpoint, and say that, look, this could keep Blake Snell healthy. Look, right now, the rotation, there's more than 5 rotation options right now. And so Paddock, Martinez, and Gore, one of them is going to get the 5 spot. And then you can have Weathers, Gore, if he makes the roster. If he's not the 5 starter, probably Gore's in the minors. But then you still have 2 other guys, Weathers, and then either Paddock or Martinez to maybe piggyback Blake Snell. And come in after Snell if he's only going those 4 innings, and that guy can go 2 or 3 innings. And then you see there, you add those 2 guys in those innings up, and look, now you're at 7 innings, and now the bullpen gets a little bit of rest. So I think that could very well benefit the Padres. Obviously, you'd want him to be, fully ready, 6, 7 innings built up, but I don't think it's necessarily like the worst thing. Blake, so I asked, AJ Cassavell put out the tweet, that he went 2 innings, but he didn't put out how he did. So I asked AJ on Twitter, and he replied, quote tweeted directly to me, and said that Snell today mixed in all 4 of his pitches. He got a bunch of whiffs, no fielders because it was a simulated game, so it wasn't like an actual backfield game like Clevenger had pitched in. It was a simulated game, so it was literally just him, the catcher, and the batter, guys taking swings off of him. There were no fielders, no umpires, so it was kind of hard to judge how many hits he gave up, but it was no more than 2, according to A.J. Cassaville. He struck out 4, according to Bob Scanlon. That's what Bob said on the broadcast today. And his changeup, obviously, he told reporters that his changeup's back. It's feeling, much better. And that's what he told Ben and Woods, earlier this week as well. So it seems like the changeup's well, and he seems like from all reports that he looks good. So I'm not going to overreact to him not being fully built up. I think it's going to end up being a positive for the Padres. And maybe this saves a little bit of his arm. Who knows? A few innings on the back end. So we'll definitely see about that. I did want to touch on him. Now, getting to Kyle Tyler, who did we acquire? Ian just asked that again. I did address that a couple minutes ago. That's who we're going to get to right now, and his name is Kyle Tyler. The Padres announced today before the game that they claimed Kyle Tyler off of waivers from the Boston Red Sox, and in order to make room for him, they designated James Norwood for assignment. So good luck to James. Yeah, just like Jason's saying in the chat, good luck to James. I don't think that James was going to have that much of a role here. And to be honest, you would think that he'll just go to the minor leagues. I don't know if any team would take a chance on him. We'll see. But they have that 10-day period to take a chance on him. But in terms of Kyle Tyler, he made his big league debut last year with the Angels in September, pitched 12 1/3 innings there with the Angels in 2021. Again, in September, had a 3.66 ERA in the minors last year, which was where he spent the bulk of his time. The Red Sox acquired him from the Angels. And I do have this video here to share for the YouTube audience real quick. Just a quick strikeout that Kyle Tyler had. Here it is. So this is him against Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who's now with the Yankees. Just 92. So maybe I'm not so sure like where he sits velocity wise, but I mean, that was his fastball in September, trying to make an impression in the big league. So I would expect that's probably where his velocity's at. Not going to be 97, 98, but I mean, I know that was one strikeout, but I'm not going to take too much from that. But I did want to talk about Kyle Tyler and his role. He's not going to make the big league roster, I wouldn't think. There's just a lot of depth right now, a lot of guys healthy, but he could be someone like a Daniel Camarena last year who comes up because of injuries. Now, obviously, you don't want that to happen because that means that we're heading for a duplicate of a year last year in terms of the pitching, where guys are the starting pitching, the relievers are getting overtaxed, and the rotation it's not going well health wise, and you don't want that to happen. But in terms of Kyle Tyler, I mean, I'd assume he starts in AAA, and he had 32 of his 60 games in the minors as starts. So he started over half of his games in the minors as a starting pitcher. So I think theoretically you could see him pitch some bulk innings if he does come up into the big leagues at some point. Obviously, he pitched in September, like I just mentioned, in the big leagues with the Angels. So he has some experience already. He already has made his big league debut. So I think, obviously, you would think that Kyle Tyler is the better option than James Norwood. That's why they made this move. And they would think that Kyle Tyler has the better chance of impacting the team this year than Norwood would. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Again, just looking at the numbers, some of his highlights, it seems like, he's not going to blow you away with the velocities, especially if we're comparing him to like the Jacob deGroms and stuff like that, who are throwing 98, 99 consistently. But seems like a serviceable, maybe bulk guy if he does make it up to the big leagues. And He was pitching in AAA last year the majority of the time, so I'd expect him to be in El Paso with the Padres as well. Again, after Mackenzie Gore starting-wise, in the minors, it's not too strong, at least in El Paso from what I know. So you would think that Kyle Tyler might just slot into the rotation there, along with Adrian Martinez, who also just got demoted yesterday. So we'll see where that goes. He's someone to definitely keep an eye on. I'll see if I can talk to him at some point, when the season, gets underway. And so keep an eye on Kyle Tyler. Good luck again to James Norwood. So that's the Kyle Tyler news that I wanted to touch on. Now, let's move to Manny Machado. He was scratched from the lineup today with back tightness. On my Twitter account at Talking Friars, I had a GIF kind of saying, it's fine, don't worry. And I think, to be honest, I'm not going to worry. Like, it's spring training. Manny Machado, I'm pretty confident. I haven't seen any comments from Bob Melvin on what he said post-game, if he's talked yet. But this feels like something that it's just spring training, just precautionary. No reason to keep him in the lineup. Just scratch him from the lineup, day off, whatever. It's Manny Machado. He knows what he's doing. He knows his body. If there's anyone that knows his body on the team the best, it's Manny. So this is something for me that it just feels like precautionary, and it feels like if this was a regular season game, he would have played. There's stories from Eric Hosmer, I think, on Brian O'Grady's podcast earlier this offseason, when he was talking about how Hosmer and teammates, they really had respect for Manny when there was a game, I think, in like Arizona or something, where he was really aching and he didn't take batting practice or something that day, and it didn't look like he was going to be in the lineup. And then right at the beginning of the game, when he was about to be on deck, he comes strolling out and he's on the on-deck circle. So he eventually – my point is he'll play through injury. We saw it last year early on in that Dodger series when he really was hurt. Okay, breaking news here. Kevin Acee says the Manny Machado back tightness was more of a sleeping thing and not something he did on the field. So breaking news there from Kevin Acee on the article that he just wrote. I'm sure Bob Melvin that's the quote that Acee was saying. But, so seems like it's more of a sleeping thing. And I'm sure all of us have experienced some back tightness like that. And probably Manny just couldn't get it loosened up, or it just didn't feel right. So this seems really like precautionary. And so I'm glad that I was definitely going live here, giving my reaction to that right when that news came down there about Kevin Acee. He just tweeted out, I have tweet notifications for him, just tweeted out that it seems like Manny's back tightness was more of a sleep thing, and the tightness couldn't really go away. So precautionary, good news with Manny Machado there, and I don't think it's really anything to worry about too much, anymore. So that's the Manny thing. Manny Machado news, scratched to the lineup from the lineup earlier today. Now moving to the game, Ryan Weathers started. And by the way, Jason, I did see your comment here. Any thoughts on Luke Voigt's first home run? I'll get to that. I'll show it, the home run as well. But as for the game today, Ryan Weathers got the start on the mound, and he's technically fighting for the fifth spot. I think he's looking on the outside of it. I think more than Gore, to be quite honest. I really like Ryan Weathers. And I think that he's definitely going to contribute to the team at some point this year. But there's just a feeling for me. Maybe with the 28-man roster, he benefits from it, and he is on the Major League roster to start the season. But for me, it's just like a gut thing where they go with Martinez and Paddock, one of those guys in the 5 spot, and then the other is a piggyback for Snell the first couple starts of the season, something like that. And then they can still use guys like a Pierce Johnson or a Lamet or a Stammen, guys like that to come in if they do need some bulk innings. I think they can use those guys. Now, again, Weathers, I think he will contribute at some point, but I think he's looking on the outside in terms of that 5th starter spot. But he's still in the hunt for it, and he struggled in the first inning with his command, especially with his fastball. It was definitely up and away, just wasn't really finishing 2 walks in that first inning, missed up and out of the zone, like I just mentioned. A couple of those batters, especially Clint Frazier, to lead off the game. But he did get out of the inning, a 5-4-3 double play to get out of that inning. Bob Scanlon did say on the broadcast that Weathers might insert a cutter into his repertoire this season. So maybe look out for that. And in terms of just deceptiveness and all that, we'll see if that, ends up happening. And so with that, there's a lot of guys that are working on different pitches. You got Ryan Weathers, obviously, with that cutter. And he mentioned another pitch, but I'm blanking on the other pitch that he mentioned. Obviously, Pagan yesterday in that story that came out about his, adjustments. The splitter is something that he's working on, and he's talked with Yu Darvish about it. I think Weathers has talked with Musgrove on the cutter. So there's guys that are, fooling around with some different pitches and seeing what works for them, just trying to improve. I would think that Darvish, is there any other pitch that he can implement? Has he implemented a knuckleball yet? But for him, obviously it's health. He's a great pitcher, I think, and if he just stays healthy, he'll definitely pitch like an ace, I think. We saw that in the majority of the first half of the season last year. So a lot of different pitchers working on some things, but with Weathers, with Gore, with Paddock, with Martinez, if you are going to work on some things, it's a weird thing there because you're trying to win that fifth spot in the starting rotation, right? You're trying to win that spot. So you want to go with stuff that you're confident in, but at the same time, spring training's the place to work on that stuff, not during the regular season. So it's just kind of like a weird balancing act that they have to balance if you are like Weathers and you're working on some things. Maybe you use that cutter when it's not, such a high situation in spring training. Like, I know it's spring training, but for high situations, maybe it's a 3-2 count. Maybe you don't do it there. But maybe if you're ahead in the count or something for the first batter of the game and you just try it, okay, ball, it's 1-2, okay, whatever. Something like that. Or you just really work on it in the bullpen with Ruben Niebla. That's also a possibility as well. They have all the StatCasts and the machines behind them with analytics and how their ball's moving and all that. So it's just a different weird kind of balance that especially pitchers that are trying to make the team, that they have to balance. Do I use that stuff that I'm trying to implement in these games and maybe it doesn't work out and my numbers get worse? Or do I just go for it and maybe that helps my case to make the roster? So it's just kind of weird there. Jason says in the comments here, I agree with Ryan Weathers. He's only 22 and needs more time in AAA. I don't even know if it's that he needs more time. I think it's just how many options right now that they have. And obviously on paper options means nothing in terms of the whole season. We saw that last year. But right now, as it stands, you have 7 guys battling for the rotation, right? You have 4 guys in it with Darvish, Musgrove, Snell, and Clevenger. And then after that, you have Gore, you have Martinez, and then you have Weathers. So that's 8 for 5 spots, that's now 7 for 5 spots. And really, it's 6 for those 5. And then you can add Weathers, you can add Lamet if they want to extend him out, but he only pitched 1 inning today, and it seems like he's going to be really fighting for that closer spot. So it just seems like right now they have more than 5 guys that they need fighting for that spot. And I think they don't want to give up on Weathers as a starter right now, and maybe they're just listing him as a starter and keeping him as a starter to increase his trade value maybe for another team. I think that's something to look at as well. If that's someone being floated to Preller and Preller's like, okay, maybe I'm interested, and maybe we get back an outfielder or someone like that. That's always a possibility as well. So I think that, Weathers, if he stays on the roster, isn't traded or anything, he's going to impact the team. He's a major league caliber pitcher. But he did have a rough kind of start to his outing today. He did bounce back, though. The 1 run that he gave up was an unearned run. It was an error by Jose Azocar in center. Just got under his glove and went all the way to the wall. And then it was an inside the park home run there. In the third inning, Weathers got a ground ball to second, struck out, I think, Clint Frazier looking, if I remember correctly, and then got a ground out to short. So his final line, 3 innings, no earned runs. He gave up 1 run. Obviously, that was unearned. Gave up just that 1 hit into the gap that ended up being an error on Azekar that ended up scoring Hermosillo for the Cubs. And then he finished with 37 pitches. So he's still on the same track in terms of innings, I believe, with Paddock and Gore. And so, again, like Jason mentioned in the chat, he's only 22 years old. So he's definitely still young. Gore's still young. Paddock's still – well, Paddock, isn't he like 26 now? So he's older than Weathers and Gore. But in terms of Weathers and Gore, they're still young. Martinez and Paddock, I think, are around the same age, if I remember correctly. Let's look at Nick Martinez's age. Let's see here. Okay, Nick Martinez is 31, so he's even older than Paddock. So Gore and Weathers are the youngest of those 4 technically battling for that 5th spot. But Dinelson Lamet came in after Ryan Weathers did. He only pitched 1 inning. I thought, on the broadcast, I think Scanlon was talking about how they were going to try to give him multiple innings today, like that was the plan. But then obviously the plan probably changed when Lamet was struggling. He ended up giving up a home run to Yan Gomes, and he gave up a double to Hermosillo on a hanging slider in that first and only inning of work down the line. So it wasn't as great of an outing as it could have been for Dinelson Lamet, but again, it's these rocky starts. And I think, like I mentioned on previous episodes this week, it's kind of like I don't want to put him right in there as the closer. I think Robert Suarez or Luis Garcia or Emilio Pagan should get that to start the season because they just have more late inning experience, consistent reliever experience. So I wouldn't put him right into the fire at the beginning of the year, going back-to-back days and all of that. And just let him get comfortable in that bullpen, wherever that role is. And then if he decides to, if he's comfortable and he tells the coaching staff, hey, I'm ready for it, and they're ready for it as well on the other side of things, then maybe you can think about it. But Lamet today went that 1 inning, gave up a home run, gave up a double, wasn't as sharp. But Craig Stammen, Emilio Pagan, Tim Hill combined for 3 innings shutout ball. They were pretty sharp today. And then perfect timing, Czar with the comment here. Kevin Kopp's hard to square up even if he's throwing 88, 89. Yeah, we had Kevin Kopp's. I had Kevin Kopp's on the show before the lockout ended. He was training, and he talked to me about his minor leagues, his experience in the minor leagues, his relationship with A.J. Preller, his story that he had of A.J. wanting him to throw more fastballs in the SEC tournament when A.J. was scouting him before he got drafted. He was playing at Arkansas. And he pitched today. He went 1 inning, really filthy. Didn't give up a run, gave up 1 hit, didn't walk anyone, struck out 2. I'll try to find here. I'll find you. Pitching Ninja, he had a video out of Kevin Kopp's, and I had Pitching Ninja as well on, Rob Friedman. I had him on as well. Here is that. Here is the Kevin Kopp's video that I'll show you. Let me share my screen here. This was today's outing. Again, the 1 hit that he gave up. Here are, for the podcast audience, I encourage you to come watch the YouTube replay for the video, or you can just look it up, Pitching Ninja on Twitter. Here's Kevin Kopp's, his 2 strikeouts. Just the breaking balls fell off the table here. The second one especially. My goodness. Just totally fell off the table there. Yeah, just absolute nasty, absolute filth. So that was Kevin Kopp's today. Again, 1 inning. And then Emilio Pagan pitched well. Tim Hill pitched well. Craig Stammen pitched pretty well. And then obviously the 2 next guys I want to get to, Luke Voit on the offensive side of things and CJ Abrams. Luke Voit, obviously, any thoughts on Luke Voit's first home run in a Padre uniform? Yeah, it was – look, he's been struggling a little bit. For anyone that's watched him in a Padre uniform so far in spring training, he has struggled a little bit, I think. with the breaking ball. But I mean, look at this. This one was one that hung a little bit of a breaking ball here, but this one was absolutely demolished, almost hit the Jumbotron in Peoria. So there's Arizona home runs, and then there's that. That ball was crushed. That would get out of anywhere. So yeah, Luke Voit, I really love. Here's a little bit more of a slow-mo version of this home run here. Middle, and absolute crushes it into the left field seats. That leg kick kind of starts high, right? A little Bellinger, a little bit to it. I know he leans back more, and then kind of has that. It's not a bent knee leg kick either. It's kind of like he's really loading, and then he really fires. He's loading back on that back foot, but his knee's bent here, but it's not as bent as most people. Like, it's not like a full big leg kick. It's more of a big load,
Fly ball to deep left field.
So
Luke Voit with a home run to the
yeah, that ball absolutely crushed. Absolutely crushed. All right, so that was Luke Voit's home run. His first home run of spring. That target at Petco, yeah, you're right. That target at Petco start is going to get dented for sure by Voit. I envision a lot of Hunter Renfroe type home runs at on top of that Western Metal Supply Company building. I think Tatis has been up there once. Renfroe was up there, I think, on that walk-off against Jansen. A few years back, that was a big moment. When the Padres still stunk. So I envision Voit doing that a lot. I envision him hitting it up by the Jumbotron, definitely on that second deck where the Hedges fan group used to be a couple nights a year, whatever that. I forget what the trombone group or whatever that was. Hitting it up there in that second deck. He has some serious power. And so I know the Padres don't really let in regular fans in when the Padres batting practice is going on, but if you ever catch him, that's a sight to see, especially on the road. If you're a fan going to any Padre road games this year, watching him hit some BP would probably be pretty fun. I don't think I've done it before. I don't remember watching him hit BP live at a stadium before, but yeah, he's got some ridiculous power. So yeah, that home run was in the first home run of spring training. That was in the fourth inning. Jason says, Hunter Renfroe, is it too late to get him back for Tommy Pham? Well, Tommy Pham went to the Reds, and then Renfroe is with the Milwaukee Brewers. He was traded in that Jackie Bradley Jr. deal like hours before the lockout happened. And people were like, what the heck is this deal? Jackie Bradley Jr., obviously that contract did not work out well in that short period of time that JBJ was with the Brewers. But he goes back to Boston. I saw he hit a home run already this spring, so maybe he's just comfortable there. Renfroe, I think they could really maybe get like an outfielder like Tyrone Taylor from the Milwaukee Brewers as a trade target because their outfield's stacked. They have Yelich, Tyrone Taylor, I think, obviously Renfroe. I'm blanking on the other names here. Let me look that up. But they have 5 really solid outfielders. Let's see here. I think don't they have Lorenzo Cain still? I think they have Lorenzo Cain still. Let me look that up. Outfielders. Oh, yeah, McCutchen. That's what I forgot. So, yeah, they have 5 outfielders. The outfield's stacked. Lorenzo Cain, Andrew McCutchen, Hunter Renfroe, Tyrone Taylor, and then Christian Yelich. Yelich, I'd expect to have a bounce-back year. And Tyrone Taylor there isn't going to get a whole lot of playing time. And maybe they could get something back, like a pitcher or something that would really benefit Milwaukee. And the Padres could get, that power potential bat in Tyrone Taylor to be, in left field over Profar. That would be an upgrade. So we can actually let's look at right now. I know this wasn't really what I was planning on doing, but now that you bring up that, Hunter Renfroe and the Brewers, outfield. Oh, perfect. Here is Tyrone Taylor. He has 3 homers in 12 spring at-bats already. So here, I'll share my screen for you. for the YouTube audience, here's Tyrone Taylor, just some of the power that he has. This is in spring training. I think this was today.
And keep going forward with that, and, especially with the second.
So this ball's crushed to dead center. I mean, more than 378 feet, obviously, that left center field wall marker there. That ball's crushed. One more time, see it again. I mean, yeah, that was batting practice, just fastball right down the middle. But at the same time, that's impressive. And then I'll look up some of Tyrone Taylor's stats, what he did last year. From what I remember, I think he played well against the Padres. 6 feet tall. I mean, it would definitely, for me, I think, it would definitely be a real upgrade. Here's sharing my screen for the YouTube audience's baseball reference page. He was a 1.6 WAR player last year, hit 12 home runs, so wasn't as much as I thought it was. But again, he didn't have as much playing time as he would probably as a starter. Again, this year, so last year he had 243 at-bats, and he's projected to have like 100 more than that this year. So they think that he's going to get more playing time. If he gets more playing time, I expect him to have more home runs than just one more than he had last year. But Baseball Reference is projecting Tyrone Taylor to have 13 home runs, driving just a little bit less than 50 home runs. 50 runs. Not really going to hit for average, but what's new there in this day and age. But, okay, so he's been in the big leagues now for parts of 3 seasons. Played more than half the season with the Brewers last year, appeared in 93 games, had 59 strikeouts, 20 walks, drove in a little over 40 runs, again, 12 home runs, combined for, 12 doubles and triples combined. And then if you compare Tyrone Taylor to Jerks and Profar, he was a 0 WAR player last year. And Tyrone Taylor, again, he was a 1.6 WAR player. So that's obviously a big difference there. That's definitely an upgrade if you're the Padres. In the comments, if you think Tyrone Taylor would be a fit, I was kind of looking there, how many outfielders they have. Obviously, they're not going to deal Kutch. They're not going to deal Yelich. Lorenzo Cain isn't really a big power bat much anymore. He's more known for his glove, and I think there's talk about him maybe retiring after this year. So Tyrone Taylor feels like that option there. And so that's maybe an option. But again, I'm not getting my hopes up for an addition. Preller's already said on the radio, he said in interviews that they're pretty confident in, this being the roster that they're going with. That's what Preller said on the Darren Smith show on Extra yesterday. So I'm not expecting a move, but I would definitely be up for that move, no doubt about that. I think he would either replace Nomar Mazara as that 4th outfielder on the roster if you're still including Profar as an outfielder, or he would be a 5th outfielder or 4th outfielder with Mazara being the 5th outfielder if they want to go that route as well and have Taylor maybe be a pinch hit bat sometimes, be a left fielder as well. DH sometimes as well if they don't want Hosmer hitting and they want Voit at first against lefties. So I think that would be appealing to me. Let's see here. Getting to CJ Abrams today, he went 1 for 3. He struck out in his first at-bat, lined to left in his third at-bat, but in his second at-bat, line drive single to left field. And then after that, which was a bullet, by the way. After that, he stole second, which led to I believe, the Padres' first run of the game. And this just shows, C.J. Abrams and the impact that he can have, the great jump that he had, no chance in getting him. Hits off the bag and a run scores. But just look at the jump that he has. He's the fastest minor leaguer in the Padres system. And it's just these things that can really help the Padres. Especially without Tatis, you lose some speed there. Kim's fast, but you have to get on base to, really put that into play. And CJ gets on base. He's right now, I believe, he's hitting 353 in spring training. I get spring training, it's early. There's still, we're March 26th, less than 2 weeks away, so there's still more games to be played. But hitting well over 300 so far. He's hitting 500 against Major League pitching thus far, 4 for 8 in those at-bats. So, look, I think some people are going to be like the Padres might want to be searching for reasons to not put him on the roster, just so like service time reasons and all that. And maybe they went into this camp thinking he's not going to be ready, so they want to validate that. But with Tatis out, and I haven't really been too impressed with what Kim's doing thus far. What's the reason? In the chat, let me know. What reasons would you, playing devil's advocate, what reasons would you provide if you're AJ Preller and you're sitting down CJ Abrams and you're telling him, hey, we're not going to put you on the Major League roster on opening day. Here's why, blah, 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 blah. What are those reasons? Because I'm trying to think of them, and what are the reasons? Because right now, as it stands, Profar's on left. He's not really he's not really that outfield option because Jorge Alfaro's not in left because that Bob Melvin's saying that he's only going to be a catcher. So you have 3 outfielders right there. Mazara can play left as well, but he seems more like the 4th outfielder and not starting either. So that leaves who's going to be that backup infielder, right? Because you have Manny at 3rd, Kim at short, Cronenworth, and then you have Hosmer. You have Voit DHing. Who are your bench infielders that can play the middle infield there with Profar in left field? So that it's just kind of like, who else are you going to put? I don't think Eggy Rosario is an option to make the big league roster. And CJ Abrams, he's showing that he fits in. He belongs. I know the first at bat today wasn't great, kind of looked lost, couldn't really control the barrel on that check swing strikeout, but I'm just trying to search for reasons why you wouldn't put him on the roster if he continues playing like this. Jason says, with 4 catchers and the extra pitchers, I wouldn't be surprised if AJ Preller swings a trade for another outfielder. I would at this point. It just seems like he's resigned to the fact that this is the roster that he's going with. Jesus, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce what way you pronounce that name. They need to trade for a big bat in the outfield. Jerks and Profar and Will Myers are not going to cut it. Put Jorge Alfaro in left or get another outfielder. Look, Profar, if you saw that relay that he made today, that was really good. I really respect the hustle, diving for that ball. Didn't catch it on the dive, but dove for it. And look, I respect the hustle that he's given, and he had a great throw into Jackson Merrill, and then Jackson Merrill gunned down the runner at catcher to Caratini, gunned him down at home. So Profar, hopefully he's worked on the defense, and I understand power-wise, right, left field, Jerks and Profar, expected to hit, 12 home runs or something? What's his projections this year? That's obviously, you want more power there, but look, we can plead for Alfaro in left field. Yes, Jason, he played left field, I believe, last year. He has experience there. But I'm trying to play, realistic GM here. In terms of what Bob Melvin's telling the media, he's having Alfaro as the catcher, and he's the backup catcher for me right now. The way he's hitting at the plate, they need power in that lineup. If Grisham and Myers aren't going to provide, a lot of power, and if Hosmer's going to hit balls in the ground, and if Nola's not going to give you a whole lot offensively, when there's going to be a catcher not named Nola there, you need that power. And so I would put Alfaro over Caratini right now. But with the 28-man roster, I think it's definitely a possibility that you see Caratini, Nola, and Alfaro make the roster. Camposano, I think, is not making the roster. If you just watch games, he's getting in games late. He hasn't really improved much defensively. Let's see. The projections for Profar, they're projecting him to hit 12 home runs this year. hit .233. So, look, Profar is what he is. I respect the hustle that he had in spring training, or that he showed earlier today. And Alfaro gunned a runner at second today by a mile, late in that game. Has 3 home runs already this spring, hit an absolute bomb against the Dodgers last night in that tie. Padres have tied 2 games in a row. So that's the way I'd go right now. And yeah, Jason, I think they'll carry 3 catchers. Jesus, the defense is good, but the offense is terrible. Put off Alfaro. Did I already read? I think I already read that comment. But yeah, I don't think Alfaro is going to be in the outfield based on what Bob Melvin's saying. But as for C.J. Abrams, again, he's hitting over 350. He's 4 for 8 against. I know that's a small sample size, but that's all we can judge him off of, right? He's healthy coming off the injury. He's playing shortstop, lead off in some of these spring training games. They're giving him every opportunity, and he's playing well off of those opportunities. What happened the last time the Padres gave a young, really talented shortstop, middle infielder, a lot of opportunities out of spring training when he wasn't really expected to make the big league roster when guys reported to spring camp? Tatis ended up making the roster and ended up benefiting and taking advantage of all of those opportunities that he got in that spring training leading into the 2019 season. And Hosmer, Kinsler, Manny, they all saw that and went into Preller's office and said, hey, let's get this dude on the roster. And I think maybe you see that again this year. Who knows? But yeah, so as for today, again, 2-2 tie, Voit homered. Weathers struggled early, but he bounced back. Lamet struggled in his inning of work. Stammen, Pagan, Hill, 3 innings shutout combined. Kevin Kopps, 1 inning, no runs. I'd expect him to, come up and impact the team at some point because injuries do happen. And in that episode, that interview that I talked to him earlier this offseason during the lockout, he said that his goal this year is to make a significant impact on this major league team in 2022. So he looked really good today in that 9th inning. And so we'll see where that goes. Struck out 2 of the 4 batters that he faced. So he's definitely someone to look at. I think he has a better chance than Ray Kerr to make the big league roster and get called up before the other guy does. So that's another storyline to watch as the regular season develops. I don't think he makes the roster, obviously, coming right out of spring training. So we'll see. Steve says Pagan didn't look good, hit hard at least twice. I don't know what your versions of being hit hard is. He didn't look as good as his last appearance, but he was like a shutout. He was a real shutout his last appearance. So we'll see. Jesus says, trade one of the pitchers who are going for the 5th starter to get a quality outfielder, I think is what he's saying. The pitcher that doesn't make the 5th starter is the guy that needs to be traded. Look, I don't think you do that right now. I think that's something that you would do when the season starts or right before, like on April 6th when the roster is decided if you're going to do that, because they don't know who the 5th starter is going to be right now. I think Ryan Weathers could be an option to be traded, but I don't really want to give up on him yet, and it depends on who that outfielder is that you're trading for. And so doing that right now doesn't make sense because you don't know who that 5th starter is. They're definitely not trading Mackenzie Gore. You know that for a fact, the way he's pitching. And with Ruben Niebla here and now, they're not doing that. Chris Paddock, I don't think they'd trade him yet. Same thing goes, obviously, with Nick Martinez. They just signed him to a big contract. So I don't see that really happening before opening day, to be quite honest with you, Jesus. But, again, Kyle Tyler was brought in for the Padres. James Norwood DFA'd. Blake Snell pitched in a simulated game. 2 simulated innings today. AJ Cassavell said he'd probably go 4 or 5 innings to start the season. And he looked pretty good, mixed all 4 of his pitches. The changeup looks pretty good. Didn't really give up many hits at all, not more than 2. So seems like a good day out of Padres camp, so we'll see. Again, it's a lot of wait and see. Jason asked in the chat here, could Emilio Pagan be the closer with Drew Pomeranz out? I think that's the guy that I would lean towards giving the closer to. I think him. I haven't seen much of Luis Garcia, but maybe they're just putting him in backfield games. I think Emilio Pagan, Luis Garcia, and Robert Suarez are the three options I think that I would at least go with to really get the closer job, get the first crack at that out of spring training. Again, I'm hesitant with doing that with Lamet, with the back-to-back games and not really having closing experience and all of that, while other three guys have at least 8th, 9th inning, like real experience. So that's who I would lean with. Emilio Pagan, I think, is definitely an option. And Drew Pomeranz, even if he was here, I would not really put him as the closer because he needs to prove to me that he can stay healthy. All this forearm stuff and the elbow and the big 3-year contract Preller gave him, it's not working out great. He hasn't stayed healthy, and until he can stay healthy, you're not penciling him in, penning him in as the closer, because you need your closer to be reliable and to be healthy and say, okay, we're going to go to this guy in the 9th inning. In this upcoming Dodger series, if you're going into a Dodger series, instead of saying, we'll pitch him tonight, hopefully he stays healthy and he's available for, tomorrow night, So I would not, even if Pomeranz was healthy, I wouldn't even give him that closer spot right now. Czar says in the chat, at this point, I would wait till the trade deadline for an outfielder and see where we are at. I mean, I'd wait. I think, look, like I mentioned, this is the team I feel like they're going to go with. I'm not so sure that I'd want to wait till the deadline. It just depends on how the season's going. If Bob Melvin somehow starts playing all far in left field, maybe they don't. If, let's say, Nomar Mazara, is displaying power like he was in his prime with Texas, maybe they don't. If, let's say, Profar is actually playing really well, improving his defense, still having competitive at-bats, maybe they don't feel the need to do that, and maybe it's just a bench bat they go get. So starting outfield-wise, it's a wait and see. Another outfielder, obviously, that would be ideal to get. I don't know if they'll wait till the trade deadline, but I think you're right in terms of them not really adding anything the rest of the spring training. I just don't see – like I mentioned multiple times in this episode, it just seems like Preller and the front office and Bob Melvin and all of them, they're just resigned to the fact that, hey, look, this guy – look, Bob Melvin this is the roster that he's going to have. This is the roster. Profar's in left, Grisham's in center, Myers is in right, Mazara is the 4th outfielder. Trace Thompson, if he performs, maybe he's the 4th outfielder or something, but this just seems like the roster they're going to go with. Let's see here. Just looking through the chat here. Jesus says Myers strikes out too much. He does, but it's his last year of his contract, and he's your right fielder. You can't really do too much about it. There's been reports that they're trying to trade Hosmer and Myers earlier this offseason. Post-lockout, there were reports about that they're shopping him hard and all that, but there's no takers. He's making $20 million this year in the luxury tax number, and he's really struggled this spring training. He strikes out too much, I agree, but this is where you are. He's the right fielder. You can, I guess, be mad about it all you want, and obviously you hope that Myers has one of those 2 years that he's had of his prime, where he's hitting these home runs and all that in San Diego, kind of like 2016, have that type of year again, and be okay defensively and all that. You hope that happens, and if that happens, I'll be happy. You just kind of have to accept the fact that seems like he's going to be the right fielder this year, or left fielder if they acquire someone who's better fit for right field. We'll see, but that's pretty much, I think, where our heads as Padre fans have to be right now. So this was fun. Episode 135, Talking Friars podcast, presented by Gaglione Bros, sponsored by Gaglione Bros, famous cheesesteaks and subs. GaglioneBros.com to view their entire menu. We'll be back. I'll be back probably tomorrow again for another live stream. Thank you so much for the YouTube audience. Again, hit that subscribe button, the like button, get those subscriber numbers up. Tell your friends about this show. I really hope that everyone who watches live enjoys it, the chat as well, and anyone watching on replay enjoys it, the podcast audience. I really appreciate you as well. Again, at Talking Friars, Twitter, Instagram. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Stay tuned for all of your Padres updates here at Talking Friars. GaslampBall.com as well, the site I write for and had some content for as well, so check that out. This is the official podcast of Gaslamp Ball, so I really appreciate everyone. Episode 135. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, go Padres.